get what it is they want. We as adults just have to practice it a little bit. Review the quiz. Personal favorite just because it's what I am. Be expressive. Now, expressives are big idea people. We tend to talk with our hands. We tend to be expressive. Expressives also can sometimes be impatient with others. We tend to talk and tell more than we ask. Expressives typically don't have a lot of problems giving their information and sharing an idea off the top of their head. Expressives can also be someone who is great at planning an event, planning a party, but it's possible they're going to forget to book the room because they aren't always the best at details. That's something they share in common with drivers. Whereas your analyticals are going to be very detail oriented, your expressives may be more of that big picture strategy person. Again, neither's right nor wrong. And ultimately, you need all of these styles in the workplace. It's interesting. Here in the United States, a lot of people tend to think people who share their opinion more, people who tend to be a little more extroverted, have better ideas. That means they oftentimes lead more towards a driver or an expressive just because drivers and expressives tend to be more vocal. That's not always the case. Sometimes the best idea in the room can come from the person who's really been paying attention to the needs of everybody. That might be an amiable, or the person who's really been digging into all of the facts. That could be an analytical. There are going to be other times when you need that big strategy, you need those big ideas. Likely that's going to come from an expressive. And finally, there could be a time where you just have to push through and get stuff done. That's when you're going to need a driver. So, as you can see, all four styles have their strengths, and all four styles are really needed in so many different situations. Now, here's where I want you to pause the video again. You've also received a more detailed explanation of each of the styles. It's going to tell you a little bit about speech patterns and some of the things you can expect from each of the four styles. As an example, analyticals and amiables tend to talk a little slower. Drivers and expressives tend to talk much faster. Amiables and expressives tend to be a little happier for no reason. They tend to talk with their hands a little more and really use emotion as part of the way they convey a message. Drivers and analyticals don't always show as much emotion. That doesn't mean they don't have them. It just means that they reserve those for a time and a place. So take a moment, read through those explanations, learn a little bit more about each of the four styles. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how to determine what style other people are and then how to flex when you need to. Okay, we're back. Now, the last thing we want to address today is the concept of flexing. Let's talk a little bit about what flexing is. Being flexible in your communication style means you recognize your preferred style, but you also recognize the style of the person you're talking to, and you're going to present information in a way that they can best receive it. Why is that important? When you're asking somebody a question, you want to ask it in a way that makes them want to say yes. Asking it in their preferred style tends to make individuals more likely to give you an affirmative answer. The opposite is when you ask somebody a question, but you do it in a way that feels very off putting to them. Their first thought is, I'm going to find a way to say no to this person just because. Here's an example of that. Let's say you're working with your assistant, and your assistant happens to be an analytical, and you need a response from them. If you're a driver, your first thought may be, I'm going to go to them and I'm going to ask them for an answer and demand it right now. But analyticals like to have a moment to think things through and assess all the facts. So the better thing would be to send them an email and say, tomorrow, I would love to have a conversation about X. At the end of that, it would be great if we could decide what way we're going to proceed. That gives that analytical time to do a bit of research, to start thinking about it, weigh out the options, and come to that meeting prepared to give an answer. Let's use another example. Let's say you're talking to an expressive and you need to get them to agree to something that normally they may not agree to. If you go in that meeting and you instantly start talking about work and you instantly start talking about what it is you need from them without asking how they're doing, what's going on in their world, they're going to feel like you're being rude. That's not your intent. But with communication, it's less about intent and more about impact. That's why you want to tailor your message to the way that your receiver can best hear it. So, when you flex, a couple of things are important. First, you need to be able to determine that person's style. You can do that in a number of ways. You can look at how they talk. It's pretty obvious from the animated sound to my voice, the amount I use my hands, the way I tend to talk about personal situations, that I'm an expressive. If it's somebody who tends to be a little more reserved, a little more thoughtful, if they ask more detailed questions, they may be an analytical. If it's somebody who's always sort of looking for that middle ground, looking for ways to unify all of the who's in the room, they may be an amiable. And if it's a person who just instantly wants to get to the bottom line, they may be a driver. Reading through the chart that you just reviewed will help you in learning ways to figure out another person's style. And once you figure it out, imitate it. Become flexible. Use their style so you can get what you need. The best way to practice this is to do it with the people you're closest to. Practice figuring out your family members' styles. Pay attention to their communication habits and write down what you think their preferred style is, and then give them the same test you just took. See how closely your guess matches their result, and then practice flexing. Funny note, kids do this better than anybody I know. If you have a young child, think a little bit about how they approach you. If you're their mom and they know you want to be buttered up, they may come to you and say, Mom, you're the best mother in the whole wide world. I love you so much. And then they drop the bomb. Can we go out for dinner tonight? I really want chicken nuggets. But if they're asking that same question to their dad, they may take a completely different approach. Dad, can we go outside and play baseball? You are the strongest person I know in the entire world. The way they butter him up a little bit is different, but they're still going to get to that question. Kids are intuitive and they know how to flex their communication style to get what it is they want. We as adults just have to practice it a little bit. Review the quiz to really understand your style. Look over the explanation. sheet that goes into additional detail about all four styles. Practice figuring out what those around you are, and then practice flexing so you can use your newfound communication knowledge to get what it is you need out of every situation. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed spending this time with you. I hope you found it valuable. I look forward to the opportunity to work with you again in the future. Again, my name is Christy Pruitt Haynes. Thank you so much. Bye bye.